Well, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folarin. It's no news now that the president was at Ecowas meeting. In fact, he is the chairman. He was elected the chairman. It's a rotational thing among all the African nations, and so it was Nigeria's turn, and President Tinubu is chairman of the African Union for a period of a year. Although it has been said, I think we've had people. Some leaders have actually had more than one term. We'll see how it goes. But in this particular term, President Tinubu, he indeed spoke as the chairman and gave us an insight into his vision. Now, joining us to look at the president's speech, brief as these speeches go, because they can really get quite long. But President Tinubu kept it brief, but it was packed with some of those things we'll be talking about. And our guest to help us look at the president's outing is a research associate professor of political behavior, Institute of African and Diaspora Studies, University of Lagos, Kayode Eesuola. Good morning to you, Kayode.
Good morning today, Yori.
Indeed.
And congratulations on our president's emergence as
indeed. I guess
the principal officer of Ecowas.
That's right. And most Nigerians will probably feel that way too. It was an opportunity for the president, to serenade democracy. Whatever, it's one of those things where the president had said that, look, you've got to love democracy. There's no better form of government, but it can be a tough mistress. That was significant, don't you? I thought that he brought democracy. There are other things in there, trade, investment, and all of that. In fact, as you know, he's even served notice that he wants to convene an extraordinary meeting come October in Nigeria so that other aspects can be explored. But the president did seem to major on the benefits and values and the advantages of democracy. Fittingly so, do you think, Kayode?
You're breaking now, Yori.
Oh, I see. Well, if you could take it from there, I think the president majored on democracy, among other things, extolling the virtues of democracy, no matter how difficult or challenging it can be at times.
Well, I don't disagree with Mr. President. Perhaps I would say it's a bit exaggerated. Democracy today in the world is a very good system of government. That there will never be alternative is what I may not agree with. But as we speak, nations across the world need democracy to be able to develop within their own domestic region as well as to be able to compete internationally. Mm-hmm. However, from our own experience in Africa, especially West Africa, I think the president should have included democracy and governance. If you look at all issues that have caused crisis for West Africa and by extension the entire Africa, they go beyond democracy. They touch deeply on governance. ECOWAS, for instance, is an economic body that focuses on majorly economic integration of the sub-region. And what is economic essentially has to do with fairness in the society in such a way that people will be able to earn their living across the sub-region, irrespective of the political party or ethnic group that they belong to. If there is no governance, this cannot happen. The matter of insecurity, which is also critical to ECOWAS, is more of a governance theme than democracy theme. So the point I'm raising is that beyond just looking at democracy as a nomenclature, if I were the president, I would say I will focus on a situation in which we don't joke with democracy across West Africa. But more importantly, I will utilize the opportunity of democracy to ensure that our people have the best governance like they have in other parts of the world. That's just the addition I should make. But I mean, there's no doubt that democracy is a very good system. It does not mean that there are no alternatives to democracy. Maybe we have not arrived at it.
Yes.
We don't think that way. It's not rigid. Well, governance must be emphasized Because without governance, people will not feel the democracy at all.
Indeed. Without governance. And also, President Tinubu remarked that apart from that, without security, very little can be done. So he spoke on that too. But to return to the first point that you made, President Tinubu, is in complete agreement because he served notice that there would be, he was proposing an extraordinary ECOWAS summit on trade and investment in October later this year in Nigeria. And the main purpose of that, to quote, is to showcase potentials and encourage matchmaking for businesses to cooperate among the various private sectors. So he's always been an advocate of bringing the private sector in. So there's that sense in which the president was also fully aware that, as you said, ECOWAS majors on business, trade, economies, and all of that kind of a thing. In this sense, do you think you could jumpstart the trade? Because I don't know what your evaluation of the trade in Africa, especially our region, has been, and how much more such an initiative as President Tinubu has proposed can aid that.
At present, research works have shown that trade is not a problem across West African sub-region, especially. We're talking about ECOWAS now.
That's right.
However, the trade that is in very good progress across West Africa still operates at the informal level. And I want that to be emphasized, informal level. People walk across West African sub-region and corridor as if there are no borders at all, informally, much more than the formal aspect of it. I think what the president needs to do is to ensure that we have enabling environment across West Africa so that as the informal trade continues to grow, the formal one, which is likely to attract more capital investment and development, should also be able to grow. But there's no way this can be done in isolation of especially security. To that extent, one will recommend to the president that he takes seriously the regional plan of action fight against terrorism targeted between 2020 and 2024. Because if there is no peace, if there is terrorism, if there is criminality, formal trading can never resolve. And that is what the president needs to know. And as I said earlier, Yori, I don't want this to be underemphasized. I want to emphasize it appropriately. Okay? Governance is key. If you ensure that within the domestic policies of the 15 member states of ECOWAS, governance is a priority. And then you align that with your, regional, philosophy. Then 50 or 60% of the problem of terrorism is resolved because the terrorists are protesting against certain social, economic, and even political circumstances, either within their own countries or outside their own countries. So a very good way of approaching this is to ensure there is security. If there's no security, you cannot do business with the other country. And beyond security, there must be emphasis on governance within the sub-region. If you have good governance, insecurity is addressed at 50 or 60%. And you can tackle the rest by military. All are interconnected. None can be taken in isolation. But as I said, the regional plan of action fight against terrorism 2020-2024 is one document that the president needs to visit and take very seriously if we are going to make any progress in West Africa at all. I think the economic is more important than the political. in this situation.
Indeed, Kayode. And then when you said that, it reminded me of an aspect of his speech. He was talking about when President Tinubu was talking about areas of the area of strengthening of the institutions of the organization will no doubt help that. It's ongoing right now. So he said, a conclusion of those efforts would actually be of great help, the ongoing institutional reforms of the organization, which would also lead to the kind of things you're talking about, this whole, the governance structure, institutional reforms. Because when bad things happen to our sub-region, such as a coup, for example, it's not always, the ECOWAS hasn't had, maybe because of what you said, that actually it's a body set up for business, trade, industry, commerce, and economies and all of that. It hasn't had that kind of an influence to be able to sort of hold these things in check. So maybe it goes back to the governance that you were talking about, and there are ongoing institutional reforms.
You're breaking now again.
Okay. He talked about speeding up and concluding ongoing institutional reforms within ECOWAS, and that would be of great help in sort of streamlining for effectiveness, better effectiveness, the body. Was that better? Did you hear that without any breaking?
Well, I mean, again, you were breaking in a great part of that speech, but I can pick the idea. The idea is all about strengthening the institutions, which in my view is what we need domestically and across this sub-region. If every member state of ECOWAS strengthens the domestic institutions, then in turn, the international institutions will be strengthened. Protecting democracy, for instance, as you know, Yori, our own experience in Africa, in West Africa especially, has been cases of coup and counter-coup that are triggered in most cases by bad governance. And that is when you see citizens of a country supporting military dictatorship against democratic government. It is not because they do not like democracy. It is not because they don't know the implications, the contradictions in military government. But it's because they felt they were not being governed well by the so-called democracy. And then they run to the alternative, which is military rule, and they legitimize military rule over democratic system of government. So if the President Tinubu, in his role now in ECOWAS, wants to be serious about even the political aspect, strengthening our democratic institution, governance must be the focus. Because where people are well governed, they will throw their legitimacy behind the institutions and the entire system. Where they are not, in protest, they go for the alternative. I mean, look at Burkina Faso, look at Mali, democratic governments were taken out on the street and people supported on the street with jubilation military dictatorship and military coup. We must stop that in Africa. And that's what I'm saying, that democracy as a nomenclature should not be the focus. It is governance. When people are well governed, they partly build the institutions of democracy and other things in the society so that you can arrive at a cohesive system and forge us forward.
The other thing, although it's still related, President Tinubu seems quite enthusiastic about bringing the organized private sectors of member countries and, sort of pooling them together much better than has been done in the past. So he has an opportunity to do that. And that would indeed be a delightful day when the original idea of cross-border trade without any hindrances, if it is really flowing on an oiled machinery, then it looks like President Tinubu is his vision is that is what will bring prosperity to us. And all that we can get from prosperity. So he's emphasizing his intention, at least his vision, that the organized private sectors across the region will indeed begin to work together. That is a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's commendable on the part of the president. That speaks to the original underlying philosophy of ECOWAS. Citizens of ECOWAS, not even citizens of Nigeria or Ghana or Togo. You have one identity card that makes you live and work and conduct other social, economic, and political activities across the 15 member states as if there were no borders. That is the philosophy. So President Tinubu is not thinking in a different direction. He's thinking along with the philosophy of ECOWAS. And I think it's something good, something that is commendable. However, the details of how to arrive at that very ambitious situation will have to be worked out. And in working it out, again, I want to emphasize, governance must be the focus. Let it be taken, Yori, that in my submission to you today, I am making it clear that protecting democracy is good, but be achieved if people are not well governed. When people are well governed, they will not only protect democracy, they will protect institutions, they will reduce criminality. I mean, then you can have a very cohesive and focused ECOWAS as well as the individual member states.
Okay.
So that must be taken as seriously as whatever you can think about.
Okay, just before we continue, an excerpt from the event itself, President Tinubu.
Commit myself to the principle and rule of law. We had a lengthy discussion this morning. Till now, we must be firm on democracy. Democracy being the best form of government. We sat here, we made some sacrifices for it. We need it to be an example to the rest of Africa and the world. What are we doing? Not only that. Without democracy, there's no governance. There's no freedom. There's no rule of law. We will not allow coup after coup in West Africa.
Okay, a very brief excerpt there from President Tinubu, at the recent ECOWAS meeting. And in the meantime, Reverend Dominic has come on. Good morning to you, Reverend Dominic.
Good morning, Yori. Good morning to Associate Prof. Kayode.
Okay.
Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, indeed.
Yori, for time's sake, Yori,
yes.
Nigeria is ECOWAS. ECOWAS is Nigeria. And I heard Mr. President talk about we will not allow Q. Just like your guest has spoken, Yori, charity begins at home. I just came back from the Southeast yesterday to bury my brother, who used to be deputy chairman to the present APC chairman in Lagos here, when they were in Ojo local government. So he died in an accident in Lagos. We buried him last week, Thursday. Yori, Southeast is at war. Many years ago, people may say it doesn't matter. It's Southeast.
Okay, no.
They can be died there. Many years ago in Borno State, we heard about bomb and bomb and bomb. We thought we were safe here. Now we have seen what Nigeria has become. If Nigeria go into war, there's no ECOWAS. Charity begins at home. Security is issue. Nigerian government must find an answer to insecurity in Southeast. Your insecurity in Southeast is not about unknown gunmen. The people that carry gun in the Southeast, I've said it before, is our brothers, they're our sisters, they're our in-laws. We know them. There's nothing like unknown gunmen. And if there must be peace in Ecowas, there must be peace in Nigeria. There must be peace in every sector of Nigeria. When we talk about commerce, we know the Southeasterners as people who go for trade and commerce. Like the guest says, it's still informal. But before you go to formal, there must be a strong informal business or commerce before the formal. Let Mr. President of Nigeria, who is strong, who is courageous, fight insecurity in Nigeria first. It's like America and allied forces. If we remove America from allied forces, there's no allied forces. If we remove Nigeria from ECOWAS, there's no ECOWAS. If Nigeria is going to war, ECOWAS will be in a big mess. There must be security here if there must be progress. There must be security here if we must stop Q. What brought Q? Q is about insecurity or bad governance. And from one problem to other, you see what they call Q. If we must stop the Q in Nigeria, Southeast is at war. I lived there for over 7 days last week. If you are living in fear, in terror, they kill every day. Whether it's in Imo or in Anambra or in Ebonyi State, they kill every day. And they carry gun openly. There's war in Southeast. We must hold it now before it escalates.
All right.
Thank you, Nigerians.